And thank you all so much for being here. I'm going to start with the reading. The Clifford King Show, ABC Studios, Midtown, New York, 1971. What does life mean to you, Veronica Lake? Life doesn't matter. Each place I've lived has taught me this. Wading through Brooklyn on a wet day in boots a size too small taught me that life doesn't matter. The hot breath in my ear that summer in the Adirondacks after we'd left New York, the priest's bulging appendage resting against my back, Lake Placid in the distance showing nothing of itself, so still and hot and sweet, reflecting only the sky, as if it was the sky. Cheap tricks. There's no heaven on earth, just a tiresome sequence of cheap tricks and beautiful illusions projected across something much darker, deeper, longer, that we do not wish to see for what it truly is. I've always known this. Life didn't matter in the convent in Montreal Mother packed me off to, the nuns belting the bad out of me as if it hurt them to do so. If God wants me to suffer, he would tell me himself, I would think, rubbing my thighs against the scratchy blankets like I was trying to start a fire while the other girls were sleeping in the frosty dawn. Life didn't matter in Miami either. My back healed up in the Florida sun, strutting the stage in a red taffeta two-piece my mother sewed to show the judges what the devil gave me. Irrepressible breasts, waist the size of a sailor's bicep, giving way to hips that sloped at such a pleasing angle it made a man thirst to run his tongue down it. I'm going skiing, Jay would say on our wedding night, not stopping until his mouth closed around the shell of my icebox. Geography, south of the border, broken arrow, eggs in a basket, orchestra stall, futs, mossy donut, velvet-lined meat grinder, the Great Divide. It didn't matter to my mother that I was sick with nerves backstage in Florida that day, red taffeta pulled around my ankles as the world fell out of me in the powder room of the beauty pageant at the sheer terror of being seen. The long July drive across the California desert, sand beating the windows, set to hit Hollywood by dawn, watching my mother nip gin from a flask in the glove compartment, dabbing the corners of her lips with her taupe cotton gloves, my stepfather's handsome tanned hands gliding up and down the sides of the steering wheel like magic. How funny to feel this young again. It's 1938 and nothing that matters can stay. What was it like? Was it easy back then in 1938 to make it big? It wasn't hard to find work in Hollywood and the work wasn't hard. I signed to an extras agency and spent long easy days making fake conversation in the space between actors on the back wall of a studio, sat at a bistro table or walking up and down a dinky slice of street, disappearing into the blank nothing of a clapperboard shop front or holding my hat to my head in a false wind. After work I wandered through the lots. I could never shake a feeling of sorrow and melancholy from that time, a crack in me that would grow, yawning and painful ache that still aches now. What had seemed like a queer and thrilling ride to me from the outside, back in Miami at the Saturday double features, great big vistas, planes in the sky, beating hooves, glistening ocean, was revealed as yet another trick of the world, a child's game. Miniature planes on wires, sad flat painted canvas hung from a brick wall and lit up at smart angles, a paddling pool of water dyed to make it sparkle. One day I got fingered from a crowd. I could have been anyone. I bombed my screen test and didn't care. When the second one came round I thought I'd bomb that too. I had a nip of whiskey to calm my nerves, and as I tried my lines, my arm slipped from the table I was sat at. My hair went in my eyes. I fluffed, blundered through the rest of the scene. I was called into the Paramount office. The fat producer said, "Keep the hair, lose the name." I got the part. He phoned that night to tell me what he'd named me. Veronica Lake. Veronica sounds like more of a somebody. Constance is a secretary's name. And Lake for your eyes, calm, clear blue. My mother was thrilled. I slipped out the window after dark to the Brown Derby and got smashed on zombies at the bar. My name is Veronica Lake. Applause, cut to commercial. And now we're going to skip to Alphabet City, Manhattan, 2019. And I think all you need to know is that Mitch is a cult filmmaker and artist and non-binary dyke in their mid-60s. And Pearl is a young filmmaker in her early 30s and recently sober. Mitch leans back against the painted brickwork of their bed, a mess of pillows at their back, wiry hair dancing over muscled calves, dressed roughly in a loose vest and boxers. Pearl is nude, on her front atop the tangled sheets and comforter, pretending to read. All morning the spring air has been creeping into the room through a cracked pane on the window above the bed, and all morning Mitch has been on and off phone calls about their upcoming shoot for Dog of Time, and all morning Pearl has been living for the quick moments Mitch spontaneously runs a thick, rough hand up her thigh. Mitch breaks the silence. What are you reading? Veronica's autobiography. I didn't know Veronica could write. It's ghostwritten. Anything juicy in it? Pearl was embarrassed to admit she was only 30 pages into this particular reread, hoping in vain to find clues to transpose into the script for The Lakes, and had been staring at the same paragraph for an hour whilst willing Mitch's hands to come back to her body. Not really. I don't know what I keep hoping to find. I can't scratch the surface of her. It's like the surface goes on forever. In the beginning, she's this teenager fresh in Hollywood at such an exciting time, and she's walking through it all like she's already jaded. She's so sad, she's tired of it all before she even begins. I mean, that's alcoholism. What do you mean? It gives you wings but takes away the sky. My sponsor told me that years ago. The spring sun has given way to rain clouds. Pearl shudders as a shadow of cloud passes over the bed. They lie prone, top to tail. She takes a sip of coffee, bitter and strong, from Mitch's stovetop pot, and resists the urge to turn her phone over in the silence, as though she needs to check if Mitch had texted her, if they've updated their Instagram, where they are. Is this what it feels like to get what you want? Eventually, Pearl manages a considered sounding, yeah, that makes sense. Mitch leaps back to life, glasses on the end of their nose. And that's filmmaking too, right? That's cinema. She saw it for what it was. You have this great idea of what you want a film to be, and then you're making it and you're ecstatic, but you're full of doubt. If what you're doing is really real, if anyone on the other side will ever see what you were trying to do, and you're butting up against the limitations of the camera, the budget, the actors, your own energy, you can't see what the audience will see, ever. You're just feeling it as you go. And there's this energy, this connection on set. You're all working towards this vision that none of you can touch. You're connected in a way that's somehow more intense even than sex. That's why there are so many love affairs on set. Pearl gulps. Mitch's film shoot starts in 3 weeks. Do you often have affairs on set? Mitch slaps her thigh playfully and winks, always. Then, without a pause, how's the script? Pearl considers lying. She's writing in water. She remembers a game her mother used to play when she was hungover in bed. Pearl and her sister would sit either side of her mother's bare back and take it in turns to write something with their index finger across her skin. And Pearl Senior had to guess what was being written. Her sister would always write, I love you, Mum, her fingers sticky with jam and sugar, toast crumbs gathered in the corner of her mouth. Pearl's messages would be so complex, so indecisive. She would cross words out and scramble letters until Pearl Senior stopped playing and drifted back to sleep. It's going okay. Slow. Talk to me. You're telling the story of her life, right? Veronica's life. Yes. No. I want it to be about everything, more than that, about addiction and recovery and loneliness, about life, about death, about water. I want it to be about me as well as about her. But it wasn't the alcoholism that drew you to her first, right? No, not initially. It was her ashes. Her ashes weren't collected when she was cremated. They were found in a second-hand shop years after she died. Little canister of a body. How does that happen to a person? That's the question I wanted to make a film about. And then I got sober, and that's the answer to my question, really. It was the drinking. That's how she disappeared. Yep, that's where we all go if we don't stop. So I wanted to make a film about how somebody disappears, how they lose themselves, but I also wanted to make it about my own experience, like almost dying and then coming back to life. So these two stories of addiction, but one has a different ending. And we're platted together and we're trying to find each other, but we can't, or we lose each other again. I survive, I get sober, I fall in love, I make art. She doesn't. Mitch sighs. But being happy doesn't really make for a good narrative, Pearl. And you didn't almost die, and your story isn't over yet. And also, you can't make art about this, about me, about what we are. It's not fair on me. It's not about you, Mitch. It's about the feeling. And I would change the story. I wouldn't put you in the film. It's my film. People would still know it's me. People know me. A pause. Pearl feels a fatigue and intense desire to escape a conversation she thought she wanted to have. And besides, how would you include Veronica? How would you show that it's her without showing her? What, you'd cast someone to play her like it's a biopic? I don't know yet. Well, it sounds like you don't really have a film. What you have is fragments, shards of mirror. You need architecture, a watertight vessel. You're still thinking about reflecting, showing, retelling. You need some invention, some novelty, something that doesn't already exist. You build that, and then you seal up all of the cracks, and then you fill it with this stuff that you're having now, feelings, questions, ideas, but structure comes first. Pearl swallows hard and wills herself to keep her eyes open. Mitch is speaking from their current practice, but their early work, made around Pearl's own age and analysed to death by her over the years, was all fragment, collage, association. That was part of its radical nature. Creating originality through the juxtaposition of two existing things, writing dikes into the cracks of history, saying the unsayable through hard cuts between past and present, between love and violence, between the masculine and feminine, between the sacred and profane. A holy third space in the portal between opposites. It's only Mitch's recent work in the last decade or so that has been increasingly concerned with unity, with world building, with coherent narrative arcs, adopting a cleaner and tighter structure, slicker aesthetics. Ultimately, they're the same concerns that Mitch is exploring, just with a higher budget and a set design and professional actors and the weight of institutional clout and expectation upon them. But Pearl doesn't say any of this because she wants to get fucked on this bed today. It's not just about me or Veronica. It's about water, like lakes and rivers and oceans. I've been reading all of this stuff about Mitch moves both hands decisively up the sides of Pearl's body, making her back arch. About these lakes that disappear overnight and the way that water was everywhere in Veronica's life. It surrounded her. The way everything looked wet in her films and she could never stop drinking, the way that drinking felt like drowning. Did you know that babies can die in their cots because they dream of being back in the womb? They think they don't have to breathe anymore. And I've been reading about planetary water. Mitch squeezes Pearl's buttocks together, spreads them apart and slides a hand between them. Like the pollutants pouring out from the Mississippi River become these dead zones in the Gulf of Mexico. They show up in the breast milk of Inuit women. In Varanasi they burn bodies on the Ganges. They tried to clean the river up once by releasing hundreds of flesh-eating turtles, but it didn't work, and the beginning of the world. Do you know some people believe a pearl cracked open to birth the world like an egg? Mitch slides their thumb up and down the crease of her labia, wetness spreading. Her breath quickens. And falling in love, the way that love pours everywhere like water, the way that when you're empty of alcohol, when you get sober, you make all this room for everything else just to rush into you, and you're this portal for the world, the lakes, the rivers, the oceans to pour and pour. Mitch removes their hand from her clit and folds a finger decisively into her anus. Then another. Pearl rises to her knees. Mitch follows. She trails off, thoughts displaced by Mitch's hand inside her. White lightning pouring through her closed eyes as she tilts her head back. Annihilated. She orgasms fast. Mitch removes their fingers swiftly, a little roughly. It really sounds interesting, but it isn't a film, not yet. They pad to the bathroom, pissing forcefully. You're making it into this big cosmology by including Veronica, the mythology, the water. It sounds like what you're really interested in, the toilet flushes, is you. They run the tap, a sound of soap squelching from between their hands. You need a treatment, an arc, a compelling hook. You need a narrative you can translate into a shot list. These are just ideas. You can't sell any of this to a producer. If you want to do something more haptic, intuitive, just pick up your camera and start filming. I self-funded for years. And I just work with the limitations of it, the pleasure. Everything's so professional now. Everybody wants to be famous young. Mitch dries their hand on their vest as they cross from the bathroom to the kitchen, head in the refrigerator. You know, I had more fun back then, just me and the Bolex and 19 feet of film. I wasn't getting paid, nobody was putting pressure on me to make anything. The world didn't give a fuck if some broke dyke like me lived or died. So everything I did for pleasure. A pause. Mitch rolls an improbable palm-sized disc of salami into a cigar and bites down on it, chewing with one side of their mouth. You know, sometimes I'm afraid that was my best work. You haven't made your best film yet, Pearl. Don't forget that it's supposed to be fun. Pearl pants on the bed as the first drops of rain hit the window, body boneless and amoebic, a single-celled organism quivering and wobbling on the shores of some ancient lake. I won't forget.
You know, aside from everything, aside from, you know, just your exquisite prose, I love the way that you read your work. Like, your background as a poet is so evident just in the way that you treat your text, and when you read it, it's such an absolute delight to listen to. Thank you so much for that. So we get to meet Pearl when she is in a chemical spiral, And then she, turns to sobriety, and we meet her then in an emotional and psychological spiral. And then when Mitch comes into the picture, it kind of seems that she's momentarily like brought back to life until the attachment that she has to Mitch becomes obsession. So I'm just interested, what interested you in that realm of addiction transference and the point where desire and obsession begins to blur?
I think it was a weird process of not realizing how much they blur or how much they mirror each other, honestly, until quite late in the process. Like, I remember reading an early blurb that had said something like, and I can't remember who wrote, I can't remember if it was someone at my publishers or my agent, and they were like, she swaps alcoholism for love addiction. And I was like, okay. Yeah, she does. But I kind of like didn't realize that until later on. And I suppose what drew me to all of it is just honestly like, it's not auto-fiction, it is fiction. There's plenty of fictional elements to it, but I would say the least fictional element is like the like somatic and psychological experience of what it feels like to be an addict in every sense of the word. And I've just always been like a monomaniacal person who can just make even the most innocuous thing into like a dangerous obsession. And it's part of why writing poetry, like it's part of why I love repetition and I love like motifs, and like part of why I love writing, because I can go back to the same experience and like repeat it again and again and again, and there's some pleasure in the repetition of it. I didn't quite see, I did see it, but I didn't completely see how much of a mirror Pearl's drug and alcohol addiction and her addiction to Mitch, like I didn't realise quite how much of a perfect mirror they were until embarrassingly late on in the process of writing.
It's that whole thing of like you can't read your label from inside the jar, and like kind of someone else's interpretation of it makes it clear. I also find it interesting, the fact that she's a director, she's highly creative, she's highly sensitive, and I feel like Prairie Oyster, it really subtly folds in the idea of the thin line between artistic passion and self-destruction. Do you feel that, did you write Pearl with the idea of having her have this temperament that makes her vulnerable to obsession, but also capable of deep feeling and connection?
Can you repeat the last bit?
Yeah, of course. So do you feel that, Pearl's temperament, did you create her in such a way that she was vulnerable to this obsession that also can make her quite prone to deep feeling and connection? Do you feel that vulnerability and deep connection are sharing a bed?
I do, actually, and it's something that I wanted to get at with this with this scene, and it doesn't feel like a natural scene to read, because I feel like what I should do for the sake of like good press or a smooth event, like particularly because I don't know how many people have read the book, is like read the beginning. But I did that at my 2 launch events, and then I was like, I'm never doing this again. I find the beginning of the book so hard to read at an event when everyone's trying to have it. Like, I'm just like, everyone's had a hard day, like they're trying to have a nice time. And it's not, it makes sense in the book to have it there. But one of the reasons that that scene is important to me is that I think it demonstrates that like Mitch and Pearl, like not just Pearl's weaknesses and strengths, but Mitch's, like not just Pearl's weaknesses, but also her strengths, and not just Mitch's strength and Mitch's power over Pearl, but also Mitch's weaknesses, like the ways in which like Pearl's experience of a sexual encounter, and also like Pearl's experience of her own creative process, being like, I want this film to be about everything. It's too much, right? You can't make a film. Mitch is right, you can't make a film about everything. She's like, no, it's not just about Veronica Lake. It's not just about me. It's about you. It's about water. It's about like the River Ganges. It's about like, poison, like oil spills in the Gulf of Mexico. Like, you can't make a film about everything. But Pearl is so open and so porous, and there's something really beautiful and connecting about that. And the sex is so transformative that Pearl is kind of like kind of broken open by it, and like transformed into, like, imagines herself at the end as this like single-celled organism. And Mitch is so like Mitch is so unaffected by it, that they're just like carrying on eating their lunch, or like, you know, it's just like, and they want to talk like shopless business, and like, so there's something to be sacrificed. Like, Mitch has lived through more than Pearl, but I wanted to demonstrate as well like the damage it can do when you do have to, like, it's that thing of like, you either die the hero or live long enough to become the villain kind of thing. Like, there is something in, I wanted to show as well like that Mitch has maybe had to lose a little bit of that emotional connection and that like openness or porousness. They're just in very different places in their career, but also in their emotional lives. That's a very long answer. I'm not sure if I answered your question.
No, that was an absolutely ideal answer, and kind of goes interestingly into my next question, because, you know, we have these two contrasts, and then, you know, do you live long enough to be the hero, or no, do you die the hero or live long enough to be the villain, or do you disappear? Do you actually have the more realistic story where you drink yourself to death and no one really cares, which was my fascination with the feature of Veronica Lake in this. You know, it's insane to think that Veronica Lake is a former mega star who doesn't actually have much of a position in the cultural memory or the cultural consciousness. What drew you towards Veronica Lake, and did she unlock something for you in this novel?
What drew, okay, so when I was a child, and I think that like probably many millennials or like many like kids of the 90s, I think like, you know, growing up at the end of the century of the self, like, and growing up in quite a difficult environment, I kept telling myself like, this is embarrassing. I don't know why I'm deciding to admit this for the first time in front of everybody. But I was like, if I can just be successful, my version of it was I was like a cinephile when I was young, and I was obsessed with TV. I was obsessed with film and TV, and I was obsessed with like different actresses in this very like closeted lesbian way. And I just was obsessed with America as well, like an Americana. And I just was like, had this vision of like, if I could just be, I think it was basically like, if I could just be famous, if I could be a famous actor, if I could be a famous writer, like if I could be somebody, then everything will be okay. And I think what drew me to Veronica Lake is like that terrifying looking into the void thing of somebody who has been given everything that a person, especially particularly like, you know, coming out of like the golden age, you know, like, and into like the silver screen, like it's like you've been given everything at the, you weren't too late to the party, like you made it at the beginning of film noir and like in the height of the silver screen, and you became someone, just, you were just a random extra, and somebody was like, you're going to be famous, I'm going to change your name, I'm going to make you famous overnight, here's a starring role in a film. And she fucked it up from the very beginning. And also from the very beginning she was so unhappy, so unhappy, and I think that's what fascinated me about her, is like somebody who chose to give it all, to have it all and then give it all away. There's something really kinky about it. Like, you know, like, and I'm fascinated as well by her insistence that she didn't regret anything and did exactly what she wanted to do. And yeah, I just couldn't get over it. I was like, why did you do that? Like, that's insane. And the ashes really got to me as well. The story about the ashes was when I was like really hooked in, this idea that these ashes just turned up at a secondhand shop. I couldn't get that out of my head.
Yeah, it's true. It's interesting that the image of Hollywood was kind of that container for you. Like, and I think that is for a lot of people. It's no coincidence that the mythology of like Marilyn Monroe is. So many people have Marilyn Monroe as like their first special interest, you know, and I just find it so interesting that yours was Veronica Lake, and that really makes sense for how it features in the novel. Well,
Lake's departure, they're so the same, because they are like very very intelligent, very troubled, very complex women who were like similarly like underestimated and not taken seriously. And Veronica's departure, like she fell out of favour at the end of the Second World War for various reasons. Oh my god, I'm not going to get into this. But like,
about half an hour.
Don't get me started. But basically, like the short version is Veronica's departure and her like career's decline was just as Monroe was coming in. So they were like ships in the night. I don't think they ever even met, but they functioned in they were in different studios too, but they played the same function in the studio system, and they also had like the same frustrations, and they also like met very similar ends.
Yeah, of course. I think another thing that I found fascinating about the novel is the way that you collapse time. So, you know, Pearl being fixated on Veronica, who is this thing of the past, and also, you know, playing so directly into her present, but also her own memories and her own trauma, for which this fascination in her work is also kind of like a container for that. And all of this thaws out as she wrestles with sobriety, whether that's chemical sobriety or the, you know, the way that she throws it into this fantasy. So I'm really interested in, how did you approach writing these sort of temporal states where time is smashed on historical, also personal history and trauma history?
Collapsing time is one of my main hobbies. But for real, like I often think about collapsing time, like the ways in which I have a joke from, I'm like going to be I'm 9 years sober, and I always am like joking with this friend of mine that I used to take a lot of drugs with, and we'd kind of go on these benders with, where we would like joke to each other that it was Tuesday, like because we would kind of lose time, right? Or like if you've ever been to Berghain, like you walk into Berghain and it's like, you know, it's like Sunday morning and then suddenly it's Monday afternoon and you don't know where the time's gone, and blackout as well. And it's also one of the practical reasons, an aside, but one of the practical reasons why I wrote the book in close third person instead of first person is it's really impossible to write first person narrative of somebody who's blackout drunk, because you can't, like, having close third person enabled me to do a bit of like zooming out in act 4 when she's really drunk, because I needed to have a bit of distance between, I couldn't have the narrator and Pearl be the exact same person. We had to be like inside Pearl's head most of the time, but then a little bit further away. But yeah, I was very interested in it, and also like I wanted to get into that kind of like grief of like intergenerational, like this kind of like, it's sort of professional yearning that Pearl does. Like she's yearning for Mitch, and there's a scene in which she's mourning the fact that, you know, she's falling in love with this person who has lived a lifetime, like, you know, who's precisely twice her age and has lived a lifetime and will die before her, and this like sense of like, you know, loving someone that's older than her parents. And then also like loving or wanting to get to know someone who A, was intent on disappearing, and B, died before she was born. There's this sense of like, that is professional level yearning, because it can never be fulfilled.
Weapons grade yearning.
Yeah, so there's like a collapsing of time in that sense as well. And yeah, and I also wanted to collapse time because I knew that I had to tell Veronica Lake's story in quite a small, like, I wrote so much more, like honestly 10 times as much as I was able to include of Veronica, like the Veronica sections, and I had to tell her story in such a concise way, so I kind of had to collapse time and have it all happen, like have it all kind of spilling out all at once in this kind of like dream-like chat show format, and have it kind of interact with Pearl's timeline in ways that I hope weren't cheesy but that talk to each other.
Having read one of the earlier drafts of Prairie Oyster, when the Veronica Lake was a bit more, there was more of it, I feel like is a book in itself. Like truly, that's so interesting to me. And aside from time, for those of you who haven't read the book, this is a very, very international book. You know, it travels about, like, you know, we're taken through the US, UK, Iceland, both coasts, and each place has its own unique character. When you write, you know, how do you think about place, and how do you think about place in relation to Pearl's inner landscape?
Part of the reason why I chose to do that, so like each act is set in a different place, is partly to demonstrate, like, honestly, the repetitive nature of addiction. Because like in some ways the book is quite repetitive. Like Pearl is like, it doesn't matter where she is. Like she can be in like the random university town, she can be in London, she can be in New York, she can be in Los Angeles, she can be, you know, upstate in the Catskills, she can be you know, on a flight above Greenland, she can be in the wilds of Iceland, and she'll still be like repeating the same three thoughts over and over again, or like enacting the same self-destructive desires. And so I wanted to demonstrate that against like a dramatic backdrop. But I think I also, and it was partly practical, I wanted to have those are all, apart from Iceland, which is only really Pearl's, that's kind of Pearl back in her own timeline, like they are all places that she's looking for Veronica. But I guess I wanted to get this sense of like, she's looking for Veronica in all these places, and she's looking for Mitch, and she's looking for herself. And it's like, it's kind of what we refer to in 12 Steps as like a geographical, like she just ends up running into herself over and over again, like in Breakfast at Tiffany's. Yeah. But it was important to me as well that Iceland was, like that we, you know, Iceland was saying it's a way of Pearl doing something that's only hers. Like Mitch isn't there, and Veronica isn't there either. Yeah.
Did you have a particular favourite place to set Pearl? Where was your relationship with each with Pearl in each place? Like, was there a favourite place when you were writing that you're like, oh, I like Pearl here?
Iceland.
Yeah,
Iceland, and like the Iceland sections were longer. Like, but honestly, but it's because it's very meta. I went on this really fucking weird residency in the middle. I went on this residency in the Westfields in Iceland, and that's where I came up with the plot for the first 4 acts of Prairie Oyster. And then I was like, is it crazy to put Act 5, like, to have it be here? But it ended up making sense.
Yeah.
But yeah, I loved it, and it really, because it was like, I don't know why, but I think it was because it was like the most separation from me, even though I had been to these places. Like, I don't know, it felt the most like I'm a real novelist or something.
Nice.
Yeah.
So something else that I really appreciated about Prairie Oyster was you wrote about sex in a way that was really emotionally revealing and vulnerable, but also just really realistic. You know, how do you approach writing sex?
So I wanted to write sex, like, I really wanted to write sex in a way that I hadn't read a ton of.
Oh.
Like, I wanted to write, I just wanted to write about fucking in a way that I hadn't just read a ton of, and I don't know how to explain exactly what I did differently to what I've been reading, but I think I wanted to, I wanted it to be, for the power dynamic to be hot and exploitative, but exploitative in a consensual way. It's like I have heard murmurs, rumblings, like on like Goodreads, which my agent tells me must check, of like, is this a consensual, like, is Pearl being groomed? And it's like, Pearl is in her 30s. Like, Pearl's exactly where she wants to be. Is it where she should be? No, but it's where she wants to. Like, someone who's in their 30s can have sex with someone that's in their 60s. Like, that's not grooming. Like, but there's a power imbalance, but it's a power imbalance that's part of the erotics of it, and they're both consenting to it. At the same time, I just wanted to write like about the real, like, and I've heard people say like the sex is really hot, and then other people be like, oh, I knew the sex would be really bad. And it's like, it's not bad or good, it's just sex. It's like, you don't have to put a label on it. Like, it's both. It's both. And I wanted it to be both. And I also, I think I wanted to, I think some people find it weird that they talk the whole way through, but like, I don't know. I wanted it to be that way. And I think I just wanted to represent like that, something, yeah, I wanted to represent just like the complexity of it. And I think the other thing I wanted to do is write about a type of desire and intimacy and erotics that like has been a big part of my life and a big part of like a lot of people I know's life, which is like a kind of butch femme dynamic that wasn't playing into like sort of tacky, I don't know, like that was kind of I think I wanted to write about like queer sex in a way that was really hot without like as a cis lesbian like exploiting or fetishizing trans bodies either. So it was really important to me to focus on Pearl's internal experience, and at no point do I describe anything about Mitch's. I never undress Mitch, and I never talk about Mitch's body at all. And that was really important to me in terms of like, I was like this, I think the only way as a cis person that I can write about a trans character having sex is if I just only focus on Pearl's internal experience. So maybe that's what feels different about it. I don't know.
No, that is really interesting. I really, you know, I really appreciate you say, like, I love that you say that, you know, writing about sex in a way that you haven't read it be written before, because like when I was reading it, like that was, it felt truly unique, like genuinely in such an interesting way. And oh, I had a follow-up question that's just left me. So, oh no, I was going to say that I feel that there should be some sort of software that as soon as you have a book published, like any thing that connects to the internet in your house has Goodreads blocked. Like we just have to, like, we have the technology. We have to make this a Storygraph as well, just all of them. Like just like can't be looking at that. So the novel has been described as a new classic for the queer lovelorn. Did you have any writers, films, or influences that helped shape that for you?
I did. So that's Maggie Nelson wrote that, and like, not to be like circle jerky, but like Bluettes was a huge influence, and like Bluettes is like by Maggie Nelson is like it's such a book of obsession, right? It's like there's kind of, it's the same like monomaniacal. It's like me with my 350 pages of research on Veronica Lake, and like this obsession over this like meditation on the same thing over and over again. And like a big influence, I was thinking about this on the way here, like a big influence that seems left field but it isn't, is Sarah Kane's 448 Psychosis.
Oh wow.
Which is kind of a suicide note, but also kind of to me about this like the final destination of this impossible yearning. Like she talks throughout the play about being in love with a woman who died 100 years before she was born, which is my experience of Veronica Lake, and like being in love with a woman you'd never met, and this kind of like impossible desire, or like this chasing this person you know is there but you can never reach them. And then the end of the play is like, it's myself I have never met whose face is pasted on the underside of my mind. And that's like, and then it says please open the curtains, and it's like a stage direction. And that really influenced the kind of meta-ness of the book, this idea that like it's Pearl, like it's so tacky to say it, but it's like it's Pearl that Pearl has never met. It's like and even at the end, like I wanted to leave it ambiguous, like I didn't want to kind of have this complete redemption arc, 'cause I don't think life works like that. But yeah, this sense of like she's finding herself in these weird places, but she's also like always being tempted back into a new cycle of doing the same thing again.
I love that you correct me if I'm wrong, but was it Sarah Kane that said built to be lonely, to love the absent?
Yes.
Is that's 100, that's so Prairie Oyster coded. It's
Yeah.
unbelievable. Wow, that's really interesting that you brought that up. I really, really, really can see that. I feel that in the industry there is a growing appetite for the kind of like messy woman. There's so much discourse around like the falling apart women, also like the good for her genre, all of that stuff, where we're kind of really leaning into the kind of more unfiltered side, shadow side of a female psyche, which I love that you've done in such a raw and relatable way, instead of just kind of spectacle of like just kind of showing off in a way that's shocking for shocking's sake. But how do you feel about the whole kind of messy girl lit genre, and why do you feel like so many people are seeking for that now?
I feel really strange about it, and I think a little bit sad actually. Like I am haunted by this video that I got asked to make that says, if you like messy girl, like my agent said it looks like I've been taken hostage. But I had to record this video that was like, and I've never done this before. This is the big leagues. Like I've been a poet my whole life and like only been published by very small presses, and like I don't know, my first work was all published by myself. Like I used to go to this I'm so old, but I used to make it on my friend Sean's typewriter, and then we would go to Kinko's on Tottenham Court Road at the middle of the night and make zines for each other. And like that was the way that I started. I don't know, this just was like so new, and I was like, well, if Little Brown say I should do it, or if this it doesn't matter who it is, but if this publisher says I should do it. And I just haunted by this video that's still like on my social media. It's like, if you like messy girl lit, then this is the book for you. And I just am like, I'm just like, don't ever talk to yourself again like that. Like don't ever talk about my friend Sophie like that. Because I just am like, I'm a 40-year-old woman, like I've got a PhD. I think I didn't realise like what a big deal it was until I noticed how it was being talked about. Sure. And I was like, would it, like, not to be like second wave feminist about it, but I was just like, well, I would never say like, oh, messy boy, right. Like Nabokov's messy boy lit. I don't know, like I just, or like there's something that's I think I'm very interested in like the pathetic, like and the kind of the clown. Like I'm in this new dopamine press anthology about the clown, and I'm so excited, and like talk to Eileen Miles loads about like I don't know, like bathos and pathetic, like the pathetic, and like I'm so interested in it. And there's no reason why like women shouldn't have as much ownership of that. Like it's such a I just feel like the clown is such a masculine vibe, and there's something better about being a clown than about being like just messy sad girl. Right. Like and there's also like so much, like, so I don't know, it's like the stuff that literature is built on is like yearning and unrequited love. Like, it's not like Petrarch is not a messy boy. Well, maybe he is a messy boy, there's nothing wrong with it, but like, I don't know, I was just thinking about like, or like all of Keats's letters to Fanny Brawne, and like this, I don't know, there's a really famous poem called Love Without Hope that I used to read. Like, it used to be one of the poems on the Underground, and I was like, I had it written in my notebook when I was like 8, and I loved it. And it's just this like tiny little poem about love without hope. And I don't know why there's something like dignity robbing and flattening about the messy sad girl, like that denies it of like the depth and the complexity of like tragic comedy that's actually happening, and also feel like it flattens out some of the themes of the work. Like, I was really interested in cinema history, and there's so many cinematic references, and there's like quite a lot of like, I feel like I was trying to do something quite complex with some of the like themes and like setting it across 100 years in like a bunch of different, like in like 5 different cities. And there's something flattening about the sad girl thing, but I mean, I'm the one that said it. I'm the first one who described it that way.
No, it's really it's quite frustrating, right? Because when you hear like, you know, sad girl lit or messy girl lit, it kind of feels like a male director that's like, okay, she's in a rock bottom, put her in lingerie and have like a cigarette hanging out of her hands, like, you know, like kind of the there's something that flattened is the exact word that I was thinking. So it is really interesting when you get those kind of briefs, isn't it? When it's like you've got to classify yourself. So it kind of leads on to my next question, which is more of, you know, talking about how people try and genreify or find the tropes in work. Another, I know how you're going to feel about this phrase already, but I'm going to be coy and pretend that we've not talked about this before. How do you feel about the phrase unlikable female protagonist? When I read reviews of books that feature that phrase, I'm always so surprised, because I usually find them extraordinarily likable, or, you know, they're simply a woman acting or behaving with the same nuance that is typically afforded male protagonists. So do you find Pearl an unlikable protagonist, and how do you feel about that framework when talking about women in fiction?
It's Goodreads pilled. That's what, yeah. It's really interesting. It's really interesting. I find it so. I felt so innocent when I before this book came out, because I just had no idea. I think I had been so like cloistered in this like quite weird little world of like zines and like small press publishing and poetry, and like me and my friend Ariana call like poetry like the family business. Ooh. Like, I get a bit embarrassed when my agent has to get involved in something to do with like my poetry. I'm just like, oh, don't worry, don't you worry about that. Like, it's all because it's such a small world, and like everyone's just doing it for the love of the game, really.
Sure.
And this is just a whole. I just had no idea that this was a whole world where people legitimately would give a star rating to a book based on how likable or unlikable the main character was. Like, I didn't like the main character. I didn't think the main character, or how morally good or justified them. Like, is the protagonist like morally a good person? Mm-hmm. And if they're not, if they're an immoral person, or they commit like a moral sin, then the star rating is lower. But it could be higher if I feel that they've been like appropriately punished. Ooh. And it's so weird. Mm-hmm. And like I remember like hearing some early feedback, and it did come like through it was like summarized for me, but like it had been sent out to some early readers, and people were like, I think I would have liked it more if I'd understood whether like Pearl had been like, if Pearl had been like more harshly and appropriately punished for these like crimes that she's committed, or if it had become, or like if I had understood that like basically if everybody had been like sentenced, you know. It's so weird. And I also am just like, where are all these likable protagonists? Like, who are they? Because I can't think, because we like, I don't know. All my favourite people are like Petra's father. Yeah. Lydia Tarr.
Lydia Tarr.
Me and Lauren both have matching Lydia Tarr innocent t-shirts.
I was going to suggest wearing them tonight.
Oh my God, we should have done. And like Pearl from the A24 Pearl, and like Erica from the piano teacher. I don't know. It's just not an interesting question. I don't know if anyone else thinks this. I don't think it's an interesting question. Like, are they a good person or not? Like,
right.
They're not babysitting my kids. Like, it doesn't matter.
Yeah, no, it's really, really, really interesting. As I feel, or I was wondering, you know, when you are, you know, you have lived experience of addiction and recovery, and writing a character who is currently in the throes of addiction and recovery, do you ever find yourself having to over-explain yourself, or, you know, is there a struggle there with the reader who might not have had that lived experience to get across what the character is actually going through?
Yes, and I think that's another thing that has really divided the book. Like, some people are like, like some people, I think, and some reviews have said like that it's hard to understand why somebody who's like so old, like where somebody's like who's like in their 30s and like so mature, it's like so embarrassing to read that. Like, I was like, I've done worse. I'm older. It's like making the same mistake over and over again, and then other people being like, oh, it's so like it so perfectly captures exactly what it feels like to be an addict and be trapped in this cycle. And yeah, I think there's also a temptation to over-explain and justify. And like how Prairie Oyster came about is that like my very first draft of it was I wanted to write a kind of autofiction piece about sobriety. It started off as an essay, and then I thought it could be a book, and I wanted to weave in my own experience of like I was kind of just writing every day, like the first year of sobriety, and this horrible relapse that I'd had, where I was hospitalised and like really almost died, and then this kind of like journey of like the first year of my sobriety, and I realised it had to be fiction because it's just so awful to have to write about terrible things that you've done and then want to explain them too and be like, well, the thing is, I behaved badly, like I treated this person this way because 20 years ago this thing happened to me. And it's like, it doesn't make for good writing, basically. And I also was just like, I think I need permission to in some ways be less honest, in some ways be more honest about what addiction feels like, and it's so much easier to do that with a character that you've invented.
Tell me about it.
Yeah, right? The memoir version.
So you are, among many things, a teacher, and you teach queer cinema. You know, that's one of the many, many strings to your bow, and I feel that, as I don't know anything about cinema, that's an area that I need to definitely enrich myself more on. But I feel like when I was reading Prairie Oyster, I was learning so much, not only about cinema, but the craft of cinema. And you said earlier on that you were, you know, from such a young age, a cinephile. Was cinema always going to feature in Prairie Oyster, or was that something that you found along the way? How did those strands of cinema and direction come into the book?
It was going to feature more heavily, but my agent had to break it to me that she was like, it's not that interesting to read. She's lovely. I saw her point. She was like, it's not that interesting to read you describing a film to us for like 10 pages. And there is a limitation, and some people really don't like it. They're like, you can't write well about it. Like, you can't. The novel is not a great medium through which to talk about the moving image. Like, it doesn't make much sense. But yeah, it always was, and there was actually like a third part to it that was all set in a cinema that was like the afterlife. It was called the Cinema of Eternity, and it's like this bardo between death and rebirth. That is implied that both Pearl and Veronica are like on the edges of, but it's like it's this idea that it's just like this cinema that goes on forever. And it was my favourite part. I loved writing it, and my agent read it, and she was like, I love it, and I was like, I love it, and she was like, you gotta cut it, it doesn't work. And like, I will do something with it one day. Cinema was always going to be a huge part of it, and I think that it took me a while to realise that Pearl and Mitch needed to be filmmakers, not writers, because they started off as writers. For no reason. just decided they should be writers. Yeah, that's how when I made that connection, that piece, I was like, oh, I think they should both be filmmakers. That worked. But that was also like the training of being a novelist, because my first draft of it, my agent was like, I don't think you know a lot about like watching films, but I don't think you know much about like how films are made, because everything was really vague. I was like, she goes to meet with a producer, and my agent was like, about what? And I was like, so that was like the most I felt like a novelist was like having to do a lot of like research about like what would a filmmaker at this stage of their career look like, and like what would a filmmaker who's like in their 60s now but started making films in the 1970s, like, you know, what cameras would they use, or like what does success look like?
Nice.
Yeah.
I have one more question, and then we're going to turn it over to audience questions. So get thinking for some absolutely stirring questions to continue this wonderful discussion. My final question is a simple curiosity. What is the significance of the title? Is there a story there?
It just came to me. I was in Iceland. I was in the Westfjords in Iceland on this 6-week residency that is like, honestly, like changed my entire life. I think about it every day of my life. I'm so glad that I managed to put a fictional version of it into the book. And I just was like, that's what it needs to be called. And there's a story that I put in the book, which is that, so the Prairie Oyster was a hangover cure, and I think I was initially interested in it because it's like what happens, it's like the alcohol without the alcohol. It's like, and it's also the oyster, like a Prairie Oyster is an egg cracked into a glass, and it's like the oyster without the oyster. And the hangover cure, it's like it's a poor substitute for the thing it is standing in for, which to me summarizes what it's like to be an addict. It's like you keep going back for the poor substitute for the thing that you think you want. And the Prairie Oyster was invented because there was in the like Wild West, in the like in the sort of 1870s or something. There was this guy from Maine, and he was like out in the prairies, and was dying. He'd fallen off his horse. He was dying, and his like dying wish was to like taste an oyster from his childhood. And obviously they were like, you know, 1,000 miles from the sea. So they just fed him a raw egg and told him it was an oyster. And he just he just wanted his mother. Like he just wanted to go back to his mother. So there's also this sense of like returning to our original form or something. But yeah. And then later on, it became clear when my agent was trying to sell the book in the States, it became clear that everybody in the US and Canada understands a Prairie Oyster as what we call a rocky oyster, which is a bull testicle. And we thought for a horrible, like 24 hours, I was going to have to change the name, but it had been called Prairie Oyster since I started writing it. And I couldn't imagine it being called anything else. And everything I came up with, everyone was like, that's shit. And I was like, well, I know it's shit. Because I couldn't call it Pearl, because there's been a film called Pearl. And I couldn't call it anything else, basically. And then I just embraced it, and I just gave Mitch a line that was like, oh, I thought that was it. But then that also really works with the kind of like butch femme, I don't know, this kind of like the blurring of like the binaries of identity, and the idea of a bull testicle and an egg, they're the same thing. Ooh. And I got kind of into it in the end.
Nice. So we are going to turn over to audience questions. Does anyone have anything they would like to ask Sophie?
I do. Sorry. This is the first time I've ever been to an author talk or ever been here. So hi guys. So I only did this because a friend recommended you should do more things like this because you want to write. So I read the opening poem and I was like, oh, this is my book. Like, it was so good. And I just wanted to ask, everything comes back to the mother. And I find that when I write, everything comes back to my mother. So I just wanted to ask about how, when you started writing, or is that something that just sort of comes to you because it comes back to the mother?
Pretty much, yeah.
So
I'd like to say I buck the trend of like lesbians with mummy issues, but I don't. Yeah, I wonder if my mum has read this book actually. I don't know if she has. But yeah, definitely, yeah, for sure. And it's something that I wanted to explore a bit in the book as well. So it's quite stylized. It's maybe a bit heavy-handed, but like in the book it's like Pearl Senior, and like Pearl's mother is Pearl Senior, but there's also this sense of like I wanted to explore those complex dynamics, because the interesting thing about the pearl and the oyster is that like the oyster is like the pearl is seen as a really beautiful thing that the oyster produces, But from the oyster's perspective, the pearl is an irritant, it's a grain of sand that they're coating with all of this nacre, and it's almost like they want to protect themselves from it. So I did want to get into that like maternal rejection, and I think also just like that that kind of mother wound thing of just like wanting to return, this sense of like this impossible desire to return to a place that you can't return to.
That oyster rejecting the pearl, highlight that. So that is, didn't know that, beautiful, loved it.
Something that didn't make it in, I don't think, but that really made it into an early draft and really blew my mind is that thing about like the ways in which you're genetically coded into your parents. So like the egg that started to sort of divide when I became an embryo or whatever was actually formed inside my grandmother, which is crazy. So when my grandmother, so this sense of like, I suppose that collapsing of time as well. Yeah, I was quite interested in that. But it was really difficult to talk about actually without going into a bit of like divine feminine, like biological essentialism or something. And I was a bit, I sort of was like, I've already got a lot of sort of egg situations on my hands. So I just got to pick my battles. So I think that was one of the ones that got cut. Yeah. But yeah, for sure, it's like, it was definitely like a haunting spectre. And then there's a scene at the end, I won't say too much, but there's a scene at the end that Veronica is thinking back to, not her mother, but like her first experience of motherhood and thinking back to this loss. Yeah.
That makes you think about inheritance, but that's a separate thing, and like what we inherit as a queer person, right? That's not biological, but it's so excellent, Sophie. Thank you for writing it. I find the writing, it's so embodied, it's so relatable, and I'm really interested in your experience of touring the book and what your thoughts are on the body on the page versus the body in the room, and how people have reacted whilst you mentioned that you don't read the beginning anymore because that was just such a complex thing to go back to, right? And it's auto-fiction, I get that, but it's drawing on things that you've experienced, and yeah, I'm interested in your thoughts on that.
Yeah, it's been interesting because I've spent like 20 years, like such a big part of being a poet is embodied. It's like really notoriously difficult to read other people's poems, and I feel like I have a lot of experience performing my own work, and I find like I've had to just be okay with with imperfection when I read Prairie Oyster. I auditioned to read the audiobook and I didn't get the part, and I agreed, but I didn't give myself the part. Like the person who did it is Albie Baldwin is amazing. They're a non-binary voice actor, and they do they can do all of the voices. There's all different accents. There's like Icelandic accent, a kind of transatlantic old Hollywood accent. Like there's men, there's women, there's like non-binary people. There's people of different generations. I couldn't do it. Like I can read Pearl fine, but like I can't. It was awful. It was terrible. It was really demoralising. And I just had to be okay with like this kind of imperfect. I just have to like read it the way I read it. But yeah, for sure, there's something really, actually like. I was so nervous when the book came out, and I had no idea what the reception would be, and like it's just so. I don't know if anyone else has had. I know quite a few people in this room have had that same experience. Like having a debut book out. This wasn't my debut book. I've had books of poetry out before, but it's a bit. No one did anything wrong. It's just the experience that it is. But it did feel a bit like being thrown to the wolves. Like, I just had it just felt like so weird, and like so it was impossible to be normal about it. Like it just felt so mental. And I realised after the couple of events that I was like, I don't have to do this to myself. Like I don't have to read this like clunky exposition about like all of the disgusting, like horrible things. Like I can just say like, Pal's not got it, and it's like you'll get the picture. Do you know, like or in it works for the book. You need it for the book, like to stay with the story for like 200 pages. You need all of that context. But I was like, oh, I don't have to put my body in that situation. And for sure, like the most autobiographical part of the book is the physical experience of addiction. And I have decided that on purpose to not read out the bits that feel closest to that, because I do genuinely have PTSD. Like it does feel quite like a bit sort of the 4 F's of trauma. Like I'm definitely going into it. Feels impossible to like stay in the room. Whereas like the sex scene and the I don't read that all the time. I check the vibe of the room. But there's like 3 scenes that I've started to read, and like I also love reading the Veronica scenes. And yeah, I'm like, I actually want to read the parts that like have a little bit of joy in them, or like pleasure, or like a conversation about art that I think is interesting. And you need the addiction narrative for the whole book to make sense, but I don't want to spend 20 minutes talking about like the rock, but what it feels like to be at rock bottom again. Yeah,
because she's so much more than just that, right? There's there's so many other stories around it, and your questions tonight are great because it's like shaping the wider narrative of the book.
Hey.
Hi. I have the question I have, but I don't want it to. It kind of it expands on to the PTSD question, which is, what advice would you give for someone that's trying to write about trauma or their own personal lived trauma that helps you to not continue to relive it in the moment when you're having to relive it essentially and write it, and then through the editing process and continuing to go. I just wondered if you had any advice or tips on how to manage that.
Just going to repeat the question for the mic.
Yeah.
So the question is, how do you write about trauma in a way that doesn't re-traumatize you?
I'm sorry, I don't know.
Did you have any?
You know what? No, I do know in a way. Like, so I would say like the most fun I had with Prairie Oyster was when I was developing Veronica's voice. It was so much fun, and I would say like having a counterpoint I think really helps, and also recognizing what really helped me and was really, really healing actually. And I don't know if you can relate to this, having like been your friend, but also read your book. Like, what really helped is being able to just have Pearl just be like terrible sometimes, just like behave really, like be as, like have her behave as like angrily and unreasonably as she was, like as she needed to be in that moment without having to justify it. That really helped, even though I knew that it was going to be misunderstood. But that's also why I really protected myself by making it fiction. And then having a counterpoint, so like having like the kind of the cinema history, and like Veronica Lake's life is really sad, but I think having this foil of having like Clifford King and like the TV show, and like also just like learning a new voice and developing something like and embodying a voice that was very much not my own, whereas Pearl's like sort of body and like embodied experience, like she's not me, but her embodied experience is so similar to mine that it did feel really traumatizing. And then some stuff I cut, and then I have to say, like, also working with like having a community really helps. I think like I had like 3 or 4 close friends that I would be sharing drafts with, and I also have like, I just happened to have an agent that's very open to talking about that kind of thing, and also like I'm really grateful to have an agent that's really protective of me. And like there are some things in Prairie Oyster that she was like, I want you to cut that, like I want you to cut it, it was too sad. They were like, that you don't have to give everything of yourself away. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
But I would say don't spend 8 years writing a book about the most traumatic year of your life.
I'm in 6, so I'm gonna hurry up.
Oh yeah, get it done before year 8 hits.
Sophie, thank you. That was beautiful. I have a question about the residency. You spoke about the importance that played. At what point in your writing of the book did you go into the residency, and was there something transformative that took place that informed the book?
So the question is, at what point in writing the book did you go to the residency? And could you repeat the second half of your question? I'm so sorry.
If there was a specific aspect about the residency that informed the direction of the book.
And if there was a specific aspect about the residency that transformed part of the book.
Yeah. Okay, so the residency, I'm not joking, the residency changed my entire life. Like, it changed the course of my entire life. Don't know how to explain it. And it came about completely randomly. and I feel so lucky. I can't recommend the residency to anyone because it doesn't exist anymore. But it was such a ramshackle residency too. Like it was just so, it really was like in a ramshackle house in a valley that's only accessible 6 months of the year, because the other 6 months of the year it's like covered in like 12 feet of snow. And I went in midsummer. It was like 24/7 daylight. It was the very northwest tip of Iceland. In a part of Iceland that's very cut off. It's only connected by a small strip of land to the rest of Iceland. It was 40 kilometres from the nearest town.
Oh my God.
And like 10 kilometres from the nearest road. So you had to drive off road for 10 kilometres to get there. I don't drive either, so I was like completely reliant on these strangers that I just met. Like, and it like changed my life. I was there for 6 weeks and I was so scared that I was gonna lose my mind. I thought I was gonna go crazy, because the wind would just like howl through the house, and like there were some days where you couldn't even go outside because the wind would just like flatten you. And it never got dark. The sun didn't even set. The sun just moved like 1 inch this way and this way. It was like bright sunlight the whole 24 hours. Like sheep would just walk, and lambs would just walk into the house. I started lambing, and I was like farming, and I was like it was crazy. It was so crazy, and I think it was crazy that anybody trusted me to do it. It was crazy that I trusted myself to do it, and it was the first time ever that I was sober. Oh, so to answer the first part of your question, I was 1 year sober, 13 months sober, I think. No, I wasn't, sorry. I was 18 months sober. So I was just at this point where like the first year of sobriety is always very shaky. Like, and I think if you have been like I was, like, and I know like we have really similar experiences, like kind of hit rock bottom quite young. And like when I was alcohol dependent and really nearly died, and so like I really had to focus for about a year on just like rebuilding my life from scratch, and just like not dying, basically. Just like the first year of my recovery was very like rehab-esque. It was just like, do not drink alcohol or take any drugs and don't die, like, and then everything else has to come afterwards. And so it was just at this point where I was starting to become a person again, and I just like I can't believe I did it. It was like a very brave thing to do, and I also just never ever. It made me cry. Like I just never have before or since really like let myself do something like that where I had nothing else to do except write. There's some days where we couldn't even leave the house because the wind was so strong, and I just sat in this attic by myself and just wrote and wrote and wrote. And like it was the first time that I'd given myself that gift of like, I believe in my own future enough, and I believe in my own practice